All right, today we're jumping into a topic that can honestly make or break a company: compliance. Now, I know, it sounds complicated, but we're going to break down how data analytics is turning it from this huge, costly burden into a really powerful strategic advantage. So, let's get into it.
Fines, lawsuits, and a trashed reputation? What do these three things have in common? Well, they are the absolute nightmare scenarios for any company that gets compliance wrong. The stakes here? They're not just high. They can be totally catastrophic for a business's bottom line and, maybe even more importantly, its public image.
The thing is, the business world today has become a genuine compliance minefield. Seriously, new regulations are popping up constantly. Global standards can sometimes clash with each other, and the public is demanding way more transparency than ever before. One little misstep can have some really serious consequences.
So, let's start by getting a lay of the land, right? What does compliance actually mean for a business these days? Because as you're about to see, it is so much more than just checking a few boxes on some form.
At its core, yeah, compliance is about following the rules. But you have to imagine a rulebook that is massive, and it's constantly being updated. It covers everything from big government regulations all the way down to a company's own internal codes of conduct.
And just look at how different these areas are. I mean, we're talking about incredibly complex labor laws, super strict data privacy rules like GDPR over in Europe, critical workplace safety policies like POSH, and of course, all the essential mandates around diversity and inclusion. Trying to manage all of this stuff by hand, it's becoming pretty much impossible.
So, if you're trying to walk through a minefield, what do you need? You need a guide, right? Something to show you the safe path forward. Well, for modern businesses, that guide is data analytics. Let's dig into how this technology just completely changes the game.
And this is really the whole idea right here. It's about using the data your company already has to find potential issues. But the key word, the one word that makes all the difference, is proactively. It's all about getting ahead of problems before they can even start.
Now, you can really see the difference here. The old way was completely reactive. You'd just wait around for an audit, do a few manual spot checks, and then scramble to fix the problems you found. You know, after the damage was already done. The new way, the one powered by analytics, it's continuous, it's automated, and it's predictive. It turns what was a huge liability into a genuine strategic advantage.
So what does this all look like in the real world? What are the actual tools in this new compliance toolkit? Let's pop the hood and take a look.
It really boils down to three main things. First, you've got comprehensive audit trails that create this crystal clear record of everything. Second, there are visual risk heat maps that show you exactly where the trouble spots are. And third, and this is the cool part, predictive models that basically act like an early warning system.
Okay, first up, the foundation, audit trails. Just think of these as a digital footprint for every important action that's taken in your systems. This creates a record that nobody can argue with. So when an auditor shows up and asks, "Hey, who did what and when?" Boom, you have a transparent answer right there, instantly.
Next, let's make that data easy to understand. A risk heat map takes thousands, or even millions, of data points and turns them into a simple, color-coded map. You can see in a second which department, which region, or which process is flashing red. That lets you focus your time and money exactly where it's needed most.
And finally, the most powerful tool of all, prediction. So how does it work? Well, it's actually a pretty straightforward three-step process. First, the system pulls in data from all over the place, HR, finance, you name it. Second, it uses some pretty smart algorithms to find weird patterns and outliers. And then third, it flags these strange things as potential violations, giving you a chance to step in before they become real, expensive problems.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, but does it actually work in the real world? Well, let's take a look at one of the most regulated industries on the entire planet, banking and finance.
This quote just says it all, doesn't it? For decades, the banking, financial services, and insurance sector, we'll just call it BFSI, was literally drowning in paperwork. Manual audits were slow, they were incredibly expensive, and they were dangerously prone to simple human error. The industry was just desperate for a better way to do things.
So, the challenge was massive. Could they actually use analytics to automate this incredibly painful process, improve their accuracy, and still keep up with the industry's insanely strict regulations?
The results, they were absolutely staggering. I mean, just look at the difference here. Audit times went from weeks of painful work down to just a few hours. Violation detection went from being reactive to proactive. But here's the most incredible number.
data coverage. Instead of just sampling, say, 15% of the data and kind of crossing their fingers, they can now analyze 100% of their transactions all the time. This wasn't just an improvement, it was a total game changer.
And that brings us to our last and maybe most important question. What does all of this mean for your business?
If you take just one thing away today, let it be this. Analytics is about so much more than just trying to avoid fines. It's about completely changing what compliance even is. It turns it from this reactive department that costs a lot of money into a proactive, data-driven engine for building a stronger, more ethical, and way more efficient business.
And that leads us to one final thought. In a world where these tools exist, where you can actually see problems coming and stop them, well, sticking to the old reactive way isn't something you have to do anymore. It's a choice. So the question for every leader out there is this: if your business isn't using data to predict risk, what exactly are you waiting for? Thanks for tuning in.